Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Upside Swings and Mega Draft podcast, the podcast with the high ceiling. I'm your host, Bryce Hendricks, joined always by the great Cooper Klein, and we're going to talk about some more guards. Coop, I normally ask how you're doing, but you said something earlier that's kind of got my brain going. Do you think this is the best guard draft we've evaluated? I mean, not to spoil how we're going to feel about a lot of these guys, but I'm kind of in. And all of a sudden, it's shaping up that I think there's like 9 starting point guards in this draft, which I don't think can be possible. But is this the best guard draft we've ever had?
It's either the best guard draft we've ever evaluated, or we have strayed so far from the divine light of long wings who don't actually play basketball very well. So I don't know. I think it really is the guard depth, though. I think genuinely people talked a lot about it during the season, and there was that stretch of 10 different guards scored 40 plus points. And it's like, oh, maybe this is just defense is just as good, if not better, than it's ever been. You see elite defenses all over college basketball, and you see elite players being able to manipulate those defenses. And I do think this is the best guard draft we've evaluated. So going back to 2021, I don't even know if it's close. Depth, top of the draft. I mean, I really liked the 2023 class of guards at the top, but I don't even think it holds a candle to these guys.
Yeah, at least in terms of depth and the number of guys I'm going to end up with having a real first round grade on, I'd imagine this is the best. I don't know that I love the time. I mean, obviously now I wasn't quite around for John Morant. Depends what you call a Cade Cunningham. But I was pretty high on a Scoot. I think personally who Scoot was as a prospect is still better than any of the guys in this draft. Now that doesn't mean Scoot, I think, has hit a very low percentile outcome. And eventually we're going to go back. Coop and I spent way too long talking about it before the podcast started and talk about some old guards that we've evaluated and how our thoughts have changed or not changed or whatever. But, I think that these guys are really, really interesting. And I've really enjoyed watching these guards. And I think this might be my favorite. Let's talk about Ebuka Okorie. Okorie had an okay combine, 6'1" and a quarter, which I know does not sound great, but I think there were some people who were worried he might be sub 6 foot. He's at least not that short. 8'2" standing reach, 6'7" and 3/4 wingspan, so he does have long arms. I don't really have great measurement comps for him, but I would say physically, he's not far off from your Mike Conley type guards. The Jones brothers. Trey was a little bit bigger, I think, but he's not super far off from those types of guys. Some other guys who measured this way in this draft, like a Kylan Boswell, Bronny James measured as this, similar measurements to a Kyrie. And so, I think while he is a small guard by NBA standards, I don't think he is an egregiously small guard. The other thing is that, he's fairly young. He's an April 10th, 2007 birthday. He just turned 19. His rookie season will be his age 19 season. One of the younger players in the draft. Not the youngest, but, anytime a rookie is going to be age 19, that's something. Played in 31 games this year. He's played 35.1 minutes per game. Multiple games where he would only sit out for literally one possession at a time. He was Stanford's team. I saw a crazy stat. They were plus 9.8 with him in, minus 15.2 with him off of the floor, or something like that. And he was barely off the floor, right? He averaged 23.2 points on 46.5, 35.4, 83 shooting splits, grabbed 3.6 rebounds, 3.6 assists, 1.6 steals, 0.3 blocks, 1.9 turnovers. For some more advanced stats here. And I would say, while, there's definitely some stuff here that's worrying. This is an overall really good stat profile when you consider that Stanford was I would say Stanford and Iowa both way worse teams than any of the top guards with guys we're discussing now. Iowa obviously made an Elite Eight, and I think that's going to come up in the Bennett Sturts conversation. But in terms of other guys with NBA talent, Stanford had 0. I would say Iowa had 0. I like Cooper Koch maybe, but compared to your Keaton Wogglers, your LeBaron Philons, your Michael Browns, your Kingston Flemings, and even your Darius Acuffs, like way, way less NBA talent around these guys on these teams, which I think is sometimes more important than just like the idea of quote unquote spacing or whatever. Like, was there enough talent? This team was not very talented. But he had a 30 usage, 52.8 effective field goal rate, 58.9 true shooting, 2.4 offensive rebound rate, not great, but a 10.3 defensive rebound rate actually for a little guard is pretty solid. 23.9 assist rate, 10.4 turnover rate. That's a 1.9 assist turnover. He is the perfect example to me in a certain way of not all assists being created equal. He had a lot of great passes that just weren't finished or, became one mores or whatever. Like, assists are a very fluky stat in a lot of ways. And I think he is an example of someone who is a better passer than his assist numbers. 1.0 block rate for a tiny guard is pretty good. 2.7 steal rate, 44.9 free throw rate, only committed 1.6 fouls per 40. He dunked 8 times. Actually, Synergy had him with 9, I believe. Only 56.3% at the rim. That's going to be a huge topic because so much of the sell for him is his like quote unquote slashing, his rim pressure, but he was an actively pretty rough finisher this year statistically. And so that's something I'm really excited to talk about. He shot 42.4% on long twos. He only took 85, 9.73 point attempts per 100. A lot of those off the dribble, 35.4%. Coop, how do you feel about the statistical profile looking at it? And then just tell me where you want to start on the offense, because I do think the sell is that this is like a sneaky like offensive star bet.
Yeah, I think that the stats profile, I mean, that 30 usage feels low for how often he was touching the ball. Stanford could not do anything without him getting involved in the action. Like you said, the 23.9 assist rate, deceptively low. I think that 10.3 defensive rebound kind of shows that he's got a little bit more motor than you would expect out of like a guy who's actually like 6'1" barefoot. Solid block rate, good steal rate. I do feel like he often doesn't push himself completely out of plays with those steals, so it's an acceptable level. The efficiency stats feel kind of low, and then you look at the assisted percentage on all of these. Only 13% assisted at the rim, 11% assisted in the mid-range, and 41% assisted from beyond the arc. I mean, this guy was self-creating just about everything. Even like the guys you think about, like an A-Cuff. Actually, before I even say that, we're going to go pull this up so I don't look like an idiot if I'm wrong.
Okay, go ahead.
I pulled it up. A-Cuff, 69% assisted on his three-pointers. Twice as assisted at the rim, almost twice as assisted on mid-range jumpers. Like, these self-creators, like true self-creator bets, are not doing it to the level of Ebuka. And I do think that's a lot in part because of what you were talking about, Bryce, where their teammates are just not the same level as like an A-Cuff or a LeBaron Philon. I do want to talk about the scoring. I think that's the big thing. I think Ebuka is a really, really talented scorer. I think about the UNC game, and I think about how they had the defenders and the personnel to top lock him the entire game, throw doubles at him randomly, and he still managed to put up 36 on like 20 shots. He got to the line a bunch. He could find ways to create space. He hustles off the ball. He like moves off the ball with a purpose. I mean, only 3 for 5 from 3, but just found his spots. He was able to dissect this defense that had NBA level defenders at multiple spots on the roster. And this was with Caleb Wilson on the team. And he managed to just drag his team kicking and screaming to a victory against a ranked team there. He can do it at all 3 levels. He can come off of screens. He can do some ISO stuff. I think for how poorly spaced is not the right word, because they had shooters, but the paint was very clogged with the big men. The big men could not do anything but go sit in the paint. He was a pretty good finisher. And for like a guy who a bunch of his finishes, he finished 240 attempts at the rim. This is not like some buoyed by the dunks, efficiency. 56 isn't horrendous. He's not like an all-time awful finisher, especially for a small guard. I think he just really had to get crafty in really poor spacing And a lot of the time with a guy standing right there, it's usually just better offense to throw it up. And the big man will go finish it. And he was also able to utilize the craftiness as a finisher to like create better angles for him and his teammates, right? He knows how to leverage that. I think that's what's most impressive to me as an offensive player. He plays hard. He knows how to play. He's got a ton of craft. And he can just do it from every single spot on the floor.
It feels like this is the next, and this is obviously a spoiler on how I feel about him overall, but it feels like this is the next in the line of the Tyrese Maxey. Obviously Kyrie is even a bit more high end, but like the small jitterbug athlete scorer. Like he's less of like a true shot maker than someone like a Kyrie. That's why, I kind of mentioned Tyrese. Like Tyrese has become such a pull-up artist too, but like still has that speed and quickness to get to the rim. He's just an unbelievable like slasher. Like his rim pressure is the best in the class. I don't even know that other than AJ DeBonsa, like no one gets to the rim as consistently and as easy as Ebuka. Like it is unbelievable. He'll beat you in switches. He'll beat your best guys in straight up ISOs. He'll do it in pick and roll. He'll play with pace. He'll push in transition. And his craft as a finisher is unbelievable. I am concerned about the finishing. It's really like tough for me to say. I went back and I was looking at some things. I really think that the reason he wasn't on radars before the season, because he wasn't, he's kind of blown up a little bit. There's a reason he was at Stanford and not somewhere like UNC, right? And Kyle Smith is great at his job, like legitimately one of the best identifiers of under the radar NBA talents in the business right now. He was in the 20th percentile at the rim in 3 SSB, which is the lesser of the two major circuits. He shot 46.2%. He was in the 26th percentile on layups, shooting 45.1%, only 2 for 7 on runners. A big reason he wasn't on the radar is that he didn't look like someone who could finish at a really consistent NBA level. High school was better, 64% at the rim, 63.4% on layups, and he played at Brewster, so like it's not like he was at some meaningless high school by any means. Like that was fine, but the truth is, for NBA stuff, most people were out there during the summer paying attention to summer stuff, and he was not good during the summer, at least as a finisher. So much of that tape at the 3 SSB level is just as good, and it's just as like he's doing all this weird stuff. Like he'll do lefty scoops, he'll go off two and hunt contact. He's the most aesthetically pleasing finisher maybe I've ever seen as a guard, like in terms of like every move is in the back. Every trick he has is there. He's shooting lefty floaters from 15 feet out off 1 or off 2 feet. Like, all this insane shit. And it hasn't quite like ever gone down. And it kind of felt like at the 3 SSB level, it's like, okay, this is him trying to figure it all out. Like, how can I use all these tools against this level of athleticism? And then at the college level, he kind of figured it out. Now, he was only in the 35th percentile at the rim. I am shooting 54% at the rim or 52.3 on layups total. Those are not great numbers, but I do think there's at least a little bit of context that's important. They couldn't generate him any rim touches off actions, like at all. It was all like not even just self-created in that he had to dribble multiple times, like true self-created in that defenses were skewed to him in a way that basically no one else saw. Like he got doubled more than anyone else other than Cam Boozer and that we've watched so far. No one else got doubled as much as Ebuka except for Cam when Cam would get in the post. He's getting doubled out on the perimeter. He's, teams are loading to him like how the Spurs would load to Shea's drives in the Western Conference Finals. Like he's seeing all this pressure and all this stuff in his way all the time, and he's still knifing to the rim and creating looks that are okay. Now, the question is, how does that project to the NBA? And the truth is, I don't really know right now. I think that the craft and creativity is going to be good enough to be passable. He's not a great athlete. For the most part, he wants to go off two. He wants to like hard, I believe left, right is what I have. He wants to hard left, right into these two-hand dunks. He's a good athlete, and he's big, long arms, which is nice. Physically, he's really similar to someone like a Maxey. But I think he's going to be more of like a floater guy in the league probably, which is fine. Like, I think his touch on runners is really good. I think overall his touch is great. Like, we talk about touch a lot, and it's kind of nebulous. Like, you go back and you listen to when we talked about Keaton Walker, I was like, I actually don't think his touch is that good. I think he just creates open shots like no one else. Ebuka is more towards that top end of touch where it's like, any type of, if he can just get the ball on his fingertips, it feels like he has a good chance of figuring out a way to get it in. Like that's kind of the top end of what touch really is. It's like when the ball gets to right here on your fingertips, can you just figure out a way to get it in, like whatever it takes, to just still touch down to its simplest pace. And I think he's great at that. Like, is there going to be some struggles with big guys? Yeah, like but if he gets switches, like he's so good at killing switches that he'll just beat them all the way to the rim all the time. And at a certain point, like I want my guards to get to the rim, be good enough at scoring and good enough at passing to play out of that, and then also have some other tricks in the bag to score. He has some step backs. We'll talk about the shot in a second, but I just think like this is the makings of a star guard, even if I have some concerns about the finishing. Coop, what are your thoughts, on the finishing and like your concern level for it? I know you've talked a little bit, but like just like what is your concern level? And then walk us through how you feel about his like kind of the rest of his scoring package.
I think that I think I worry a little because it's just so consistently not there, right? I that does give me some pause, especially because I've been burned by guys who it's like, oh, but the touch is there, like so obviously there in the past. But I'd say I'm like 60% worried, 40% like not that worried. I don't know if that's like a super tangible amount, but like mostly worried, but not like prospect endingly worried about him. I think just the self-creation stuff is just so impressive for him. He's able to come off of screens. He can get you in an ISO, and the handle's so good that he can just kind of get to wherever he wants to go. He's good in mid-range, but he doesn't like take a ton. Most of these guys, like if you put Kingston Flemings on this team, he would not have taken 240 attempts at the rim. That's an insane number, on like a not, a not super talented team to be able to get to the rim that often, I think is the big thing for me as a scorer. Very obviously talented. He's very obviously like, I think he's got the proper shot diet for this kind of guy. If you're going to be undersized and be one of these shot creator guys, you cannot have an unideal shot diet. You cannot be one of these guys out here taking, 150, 200 mid-ranges a game and expecting that to be your game at the NBA level. And I don't think that that's going to be Ebuka. I think what's really interesting to me is the playmaking. And if you're ready to move over to that, Bryce, if he's really able to just knife into the paint, he has the most beautiful skip passes out of anyone in the class. He'll penetrate, he'll drag the defense along, boom, skip pass. You talked about, assists not as this perfect, measure of playmaking, but I bet if you hand tracked all of his advantage creating passes or his high leverage passes, I think he'd lead the class in them very easily. I think he's just like every single pass creates an advantage for this offense. He is everywhere. He is just getting downhill. He's making kickouts to his guys. He's making interior passes. He'll get you up in the air on his drives and then make a dump off like around you. He uses his length really well as a playmaker. He sees the floor really well as a playmaker. I think it's a legitimate, like his slashing and the playmaking out of that is a legitimately special skill, in my opinion. And that is really hard to do as a 6'1", 6'2" guard.
Yeah, I thought the passing was really impressive. He's the good kind of jump passer where he's jump passing to create angles, not jump passing because he can't access them. Now, there are times it still frustrates me, I can't lie, but there's a lot of really good. The next step for him as a playmaker will be learning to consistently just nash under the rim instead of kind of getting under the rim and then trying to figure it out by killing his dribble. Like, I think he's going to be a tight enough handler to get where he wants to go. But he's just so quick. Like, he's so explosive. The first step is great. The ability to play with pace is great. In real spacing, I'm interested to see how it looks, and with like real, lob threat type guys. Like this is the type of guy I want to see on teams that have those types of gravity wells around him, because I think he's not like some elite processor. Like he's not crazy manipulative as a passer, but he's really good at making the right play out of his elite advantage creation, which is, generally more important. He is just like, he's not selfish at all for someone who was such a big scorer and had to have such a big like load. Like he's trying to get other guys involved. He's trying to pick his spots. And then once he would get going, he would really get going. But it never felt like he was really overly forcing it, like he was, banging his head into a wall or anything. Like even a lot of his missed layups, it's like, a lot of late clock. Like he and Bennett Sturts are the two, like they had the flaming bag. Like we talked about Darius Acuff, like kind of having some flaming bag shots in there. Like no, Ebuka Okorie and Bennett Sturts had the bag, and they, that thing was on fire pretty much the whole possession, anyways. But especially in those final 5 seconds, it was, you got to go do something. And so, they kind of were, Ebuka kind of got stuck, with that a lot. And I think he's good at that. Like he's just a really good advantage creator. I think he'll be unlocked more in transition in the NBA when there's just more depth, more time to do it. Like, I think he's an elite top speed guy. I think the other thing to discuss here is the shooting. Again, I don't think he's like an elite passer. Like I don't think he's like going to average 12 assists per game in the NBA or anything like that. But he's totally commensurate, if not better, than a lot of the other passers of his. Like, I think he's a better passer at the same time than someone like a Kyrie or someone like a Maxey, or even someone like a Darius Garland. Like, he is a little bit more sped up than like someone like a Darius Garland. Like, he's less, true pace in the pick and roll, but not always. Like, I think that he can play with pace and he can use angles, and he doesn't really feel over. I mean, he's never pressured. Like the thing is on a string. In my opinion, he probably has the best handle in the class, in terms of, both reactivity, manipulation, explosion out of it, ability to use pickups creatively. Like every aspect of handle I look for, like he has. I would say he's a better handler than Flemings or Acuff or Michael by quite a bit. The only person I think is close is Phylon, but he is way more explosive out of his moves than Phylon. And so that combines with what I think is going to be okay to maybe even really good shooting in the NBA. So the stats on it aren't elite. He was only in the 55th percentile in catch and shoot, 74 attempts, 35.1% field goal percentage, 51.4% effective field goal percentage. But he was in the 76th percentile off the dribble, 35.2% field goal percentage, 47.9% effective field goal percentage. There's some more stats going back, and catch and shoots were better at the high school level. At the 3SSB level, not so much. It's definitely like not typical. Like there's strong knee valgus, which means his knees kind of come together on his rise. And the feet finish like together. Like as he jumps, his feet kind of land together. But I think the energy transfer and the touch are both really good. There's a lot of cheats for power in there. Like he's trying to, like where he loads the ball kind of on his shoulder, his twist toward, again, that knee valgus. That's all like what I call cheats for power. Like he's trying to get more power, but his touch is good enough that it kind of doesn't like throw his touch off to be cheating that much. Like he can get away with cheating and making those mistakes in order to create those shots. The one thing I will say for him is that he's kind of he has it or he doesn't shooter right now. And what that means is that he's crazy streaky. There's a lot of games where he goes like 0 for 3, 0 for 5, 0 for 9. And then a lot of games where he's like 4 for 7, 5 for 6. I think there was one game where he made, I think he made like 5 of 5 in a big game at some point down the stretch. Like, he has like this streaky nature to him that is, I wouldn't say concerning, but it's like, is he going to catch fire at the right time to be like a strong NBA scorer? Like, can that straighten out? Because I do think that he's going to have to be at least a competent shot maker. Like, I don't think this can be, a TJ McConnell type of guy where he's like not really a good shooter at all. If he wants to be return any type of value where I see him, but I think there's a chance that he's a plus shot maker, if not like a crazy elite one, who is able to use, like if you step up at all, is just going to blow by you and is going to get downhill and make plays. And he's also, willing to like do stuff as part of an offense. For someone who is such a big time scorer, he'll set screens, he'll move off the ball pretty well. He understands the continuity, like Stanford was doing a lot of like Zoom continuity stuff. Defenses would entirely load to him and he'd still kind of figure out ways to get the ball. He's not unphysical. For someone who is as skinny as he is, there are multiple times where he takes like hard pound dribbles and finishes through someone's chest. Like there's a lot of like just really good stuff. So before I get too much to talking about his value, Coop, do you have any thoughts on the shot? Anything else you want to say on the offense? And if not, will you transition us to his defense?
The offense is just awesome. I think that's the easiest way to put it. Moving over to the defense, he tries, which is more than you can say for a lot of like heavy shot creators at this size. I don't think he's like your typical, like you can fully pick on this guy at 6'1". I think he puts in a lot of effort. He boxes guys out. He will like make you fight on like a switch in the deep post. He will use his body. He uses his length well as a defender. I don't think he's like some crazy rotate, be all around, kind of guy, but he's like 6'2". If he can be, guard some twos, mostly some point of attack, fight through some screens, which I think he can do. He's not Trae Young. And I think that's the big thing for him is that he's not this super awful pick on level of defender. He is a solid step, if not two, above those levels of guys. Nothing special, nothing to like sit here and like harp on forever, but he's passable.
Yeah. I mean, I thought, the length makes him a little bit more survivable. My guess is in the NBA, he's going to be guarding like off-ball shooters. Like you're going to put him on a Duncan Robinson and say, I hope that's good enough. Obviously some teams don't have that guy on the floor all the time. There's some questions like he can't play and switch everything schemes. He's going to have to be good at getting through screens. But I thought for someone whose usage was this high, his effort was really good. I mean, there were not a lot of plays where he's just like standing still at least. And so, he can make some plays. His steal rate was pretty good. I mean, a 1 block rate is good. Like that's just actively good for a guy this small. So there's some good stuff in there in terms of his effort. I thought he was active, like actually a really good rebounder for his size, which is important because if he can be an effective grab and go guy, that changes the calculus on who he is. But as I transition to value, I'm having a hard time not viewing this guy as a top 5 guy. Like truthfully, Coop, and you can tell me if I'm crazy. There's obviously some concern, like anytime it's someone this small who is not for sure a great shooter and whose finishing numbers are kind of a question, like I understand. And I know this guy, I'm not spending very much time on draft tour anymore, but I've started to get a little bit more into it now that I'm not coaching. And, I see a lot of people are very high on him. I don't know how high necessarily, but he gets a lot of talk. And so I'm not trying to be like the draft Twitter gas up guy or anything. I just think this guy's really good. I just think Ebuka is super talented. I think at a certain point, what I want from my guards to be star guards is elite advantage creators who can make shots off the dribble and off the catch, who are good enough at exploiting those advantages, either as downhill scorers or passers who are survivable on defense. Well, Ebuka has all those things. And I think there's actually worlds where the defense scales up a little bit, and he's actually like kind of a pretty good pesky on-ball defender. It's kind of weird. It's a weird comparison, but like Bones Highland has become like a pretty comparable, like not comparable, pretty solid, like comfortable on-ball defender at times. Like I think Ebuka is at least going to develop to that type of level, right? Like if not getting to a point where he's he's up there with some of the better small guard defenders in the league. Is he like a TJ McConnell type. Probably not really, but like, I think he could get to be the level of defender of like an Isaiah Collier right now. Now Collier's stronger, but he's longer. Or, you're Colin Gillespie's, or you're, Fred Van Vliet's even. Now he's obviously stronger, but again, like I also think there's a chance that like Ebuka can put on some weight. Like I don't think his frame is super tiny. I just, a Jamal Shed, that's actually a great comp. Dennis Schroeder has become a plenty competent NBA defender. Like I think he's in the mold of those types of guys, like as a more lower end. Like at a certain point, advantage creation is advantage creation, and ball handling is ball handling. If you're amongst the best ball handlers in the world, you're probably going to play in the NBA. It doesn't matter how small you are. It doesn't matter, especially if you can exploit it with your quickness. I don't know. Talk me down a little bit, Coop. Like, am I too high to say top 5? Because I do see star outcomes, and I see, like some floor here that I like too. So I'm really considering in that like DeBonsa, Quintance, Wagler tier, which would give me 6 guys with top 5 grades, which is crazy. Is that way too high? Like, where are you at with him?
I don't think that's way too high. I don't think that's crazy. I don't think it's crazy to say that. I am personally fading him a little bit, and by fading him, I mean he'll probably be at 7 or 8 on my board and not at 5 or 6. I think he's incredible. I think he's really, really good. I probably like him more than a Wagler. I think that he's a more reliable athlete. I think getting downhill to the degree he has is more reliable than Wagler's on-ball stuff, though I do buy Wagler's mid-tier outcomes a lot more. And I probably like him about as much as Quaintance. I think I'll probably go back and forth over what has more value. I think that's a really interesting discussion, actually, about positional value in the NBA, with Okorie and his elite creation, or Quaintance and his elite just like defensive disruption. I think that could be that's a really interesting discussion.
There was once a time where that wasn't a discussion for us, truthfully. And it's kind of interesting how things have changed. I lean Okorie in this, even though I was super high on Quaintance, obviously, and I still am. I lean Okorie because I think that in the end, still, the most valuable thing in basketball is, can you do something that is just completely unguardable? And I think there's a chance that Okorie's like first step downhill advantage creation is so shifting the defenses that if you give him solid surrounding, like he's never going to be the true heliocentric guy, but like, again, this is crazy. I obviously know this is like way too much to say, but like if he has like a Jalen Brunson level team around him, like the Knicks do right now, could he have a Jalen Brunson level season? Yeah, I think so. Or like a, Donovan Mitchell type season where he's one of the best guards in the league. I absolutely think that's a possibility. And, unless you're a true Wemby level defender, as good as you are defensively, that's still probably not to that level of value. Evan Mobley was a great defender, is still a great defender, defensive player of the year. You don't take him over Jalen Brunson really right now. Not anyone serious about trying to build a championship team. And so when I'm thinking about the top ends of team building, I do think what Okorie could do is more rare than what I think Quintance will do. And so it's close with those. I'm in the same tier, but I lean Okorie. And I'll be honest, a part of me, like, I think I lean Okorie over Wagler. And I'm really questioning Okorie versus DeBonsa. Like, I think I should probably just leave DeBonsa at 3, but I think it's a debate. Like, I think Okorie, like, there's a chance we look back and we're like, yeah, he's a top 3 player in this class, or he's the second best guy behind Boozer because Peterson, was like a good shooter, but never quite figured out the creation. And Okorie's just like the best downhill driving passer, floater guy, pull up shooter combination in the league. Like that's not completely out of the question for me. So I do lean Okorie, but I do think it's an interesting question for sure from a team building standpoint.
Yeah, I was thinking about it like there's 5 other guards in this tier who are also like creator bets, and Quaintance is the one who's not. And I still just, dude, Ibuka's so fucking good. He's so good. And
we should have the conversation about Ebuka versus those other guards. To be honest, like I do think it's because he's being talked like in mock drafts and shit. I see like he's in a completely separate world from those guys. Like he's in the 20s or low 30s, and to me that's like insanity.
I think him versus Phylon is like the most interesting conversation you can have about two different guards, right? Mm-hmm. Like even like or him versus Flemings. Like I think him versus these against these top guys is so interesting because he's so different. Like all these other guys, it's like elite shot making combined with one other special skill. And Ebuka, it's like, oh, it's actually, I think he has the most valuable special skill. I think he's the least guardable of all these guys, but he's also like just not that efficient. He's not as efficient as these other guys in that way. And I think that's kind of what pulls him down in that sense for me.
So my question is, if you replaced Michael Brown with Ebuka Okorie, who has the better season, Ebuka or Michael?
Well, Ebuka, but Michael is like 2 tiers below the guys who I'm talking about.
So you're thinking LeBaron and Keaton and Kingston.
Yeah. Okay.
I think my argument for him over Kingston is that I'm way, even though I think they're both kind of as prospects, more fringy type shooters, I'm way more confident in Ibuka's outside jumper. I think he's a better outside creator. And what I think Flemings does better is defense. Like, I don't think he's so much better at it to clear that gap for me. I think the passing is fairly marginal with those two. I think Kingston's probably a better pick and roll passer, but Ebuka is a better, like, true, advantage creating, downhill attacking, inside out passer. So I think it's really a toss up. Not really a toss up, excuse me. I lean Ebuka by a whole tier. Like, I think there's arguments for Kingston, but I would lean him by a whole tier. Phylon is fascinating. I think you make some great points. I just think Ebuka has more star traits. Like, for me, what it comes down to is I think Phylon is probably better at basketball right now. And that's the one guy where I'm like, if they just traded teams, like, I'm not sure Ebuka would have been better for Alabama than Phylon necessarily. But I just think Ibuka's star traits are way more interesting. So I don't know. That's that. And then Wagler is the one that's tough for me. I think I prefer downhill creation to space creation. And I've become more and more concerned with my Wagler evaluation as I've gotten far from it because he's just so much not the archetype of player I normally like. I still think I'm going to stick with it to some extent, but I just think I'm way more excited about drafting Ebuka than I would be Keaton. Do any of those do you push back on?
I think Kingston's motor is. I think I agree with you on all your like evaluations of their skills. I still think Kingston's motor is one of the elite skills in this class and is one of the big ways that you win basketball games at a high level. I think Phylon is just like, he's so much more efficient. Like he's fucking good, like really fucking good. There's also some like mix up with, is it him or the system? Obviously he's very good, but if you take him out of Nate Oates' system in college basketball, is he going to be able to thrive as much? Obviously, I love Phylon. I think he's really good, but there is some worry there with that kind of thing. Ebuka is also the kind of guy who you watch and you are immediately like, oh, this guy could be the best player in the class, just aesthetically. You watch his highlights and you're like, oh, this is what a superstar is, right? Like, I don't know how you watch him and you don't put him in the same conversation as AJ DeBonsa.
Other than the fact that he's not like posterizing dudes. Like, if he had like a couple more poster dunks, you'd feel that way, right? Like, everything else feels like, his the way I put it in my notes is like his scoring vocabulary, like the number of different ways he can get buckets is best in the class, in my opinion. Like, I love Peterson. I think Peterson's great. Peterson has a couple of ways that he goes about getting buckets, really. It's going to be that like step back midi. It's going to be running off screens, catch and shoot threes. It's going to be hard downhill drives towards his right hand. Boozer a little bit more maybe, post ups. He kind of has a couple moves, but mostly he just wants to beast you. He wants to drive through your chest, and he's going to make some threes, and I think eventually make some pull up threes. Great. DeBonce does mostly just like he's all downhill, right? Like Ebuka has all these different tools in the bag, which you need, right? Like to be a small guard, you need all these tools in the bag. But he is like an unbelievably versatile scorer, like that you just watch and it's hard not to get mesmerized by. And then you look at the stats and you're like, well, there's definitely some questions there, right? Like, again, that finishing efficiency does concern me. I think I've talked about the ways to push back on it, but there's a certain point where it's like ball doesn't go in hoop, like that's bad. But I just think, I don't know, dude, there's just something here. Like he's the type of guy I watch and I'm like, I don't want to miss on this. If this is if this is a guy who's like competing for an MVP in 6 years, I don't want to be like, yeah, man, I thought he was good, but I kind of talked myself out of it. Like, I'd rather just swing high and say, fuck it. Like, I believe in the star traits and I'll take my lumps if this is Sharif Cooper 2.0 than, oh, I'm going to be conservative because other people said, maybe some stuff and then have it turn out to be that he's like a superstar of all superstars. Like at a certain point, I need to trust my gut for good and for bad. And my gut tells me like this guy's a top 3 or 4 guy. I'm probably still going to have AJ over him because I do think like, again, at a certain point, AJ is an elite driving scorer at like 6'9". And hopefully he can figure out some of the other shit. Like that's like just a higher ceiling than Ebuka really could conceivably have if it actualizes. But I think it's close. Like I'm not by any means, fighting that. So I think it's tough. It's tough for me to get much lower on Ebuka, honestly. I'm going to end with him at 4 probably on my board.
I got him at 6. You've kind of talked me up a little bit. I do like him more than Quaintance. I think that's what stardom is, right? Is Ebuka Okorie. It's special skills. It's creation for you and others. And as much as I want to be crazy and put him above AJ DeBonsa, I will keep him down below DeBonsa and Phylon. And I feel pretty good about that. Him at 6.
We were talking a little bit about what have we learned? What have we learned, from mistakes? And we were talking, we made a mistake on Steph Castle. I still think he's maybe a little bit overrated by the context he's in. But at a certain point, like, I got to take my lumps. I had him in like 23 or something. Like, that's horrendous. It's a horrendous take. It's really bad. You're sometimes going to miss. You know which one hurts me way worse than Steph Castle? Is that I believed so strongly in Jalen Williams. If you go back and you listen to that podcast, I'm talking about him like he's the next, like a superstar. Like I'm talking about him like I think this guy is going to be unbelievable. And then I let myself get a little bit scared and I put him at 14. And now I look back and I'm like, how stupid. Like I would rather be fully in on my convictions and miss in those ways than like be kind of wishy-washy and miss out of fear. Like part of the fun of this is that you're going to take big swings and miss it sometimes. NBA teams do it all the time. You don't think there's constant, give and take up there. Like everyone wants to, point at you for your misses, and sometimes they should. Like sometimes, yeah, I need to be called out for fucking up sometimes. Like that's okay, but there's also a level of that. This is the job. Like the job is to take big swings and hope and pray. And every once in a while, you're going to hit on a Maxey at 21 or a Jalen Brunson at 33 or whatever, right? Like, and sometimes you're going to say, hey, maybe this guy could be that, and then he's not, and that's okay. Like, if Ebuka is Ty Jerome, who was drafted at 25, if he gets drafted at 25 in this draft and he has the Ty Jerome career, perfectly reasonable. I'll still be happy with having him here. Like there is a little bit of I gotta give some grace and I just gotta believe, man. And Ebuka is easy to believe in. He's just really fun to watch. Like there's at least a little bit of like aesthetically, this is the most pleasing, maybe the most pleasing guard I've ever watched in terms of like just how easy he wins. Like he just makes the game of basketball look so simple. And it's hard not to fall in love. But anyway, do you have any final thoughts that you wanted to say before we move on?
This is a really good episode. I really like that. That was a good discussion.
Yeah, that was good. And this will probably be our least viewed one of all time. That's okay.
That's the way it works. That's the way it works. Short guards.
So, every time someone has the same listed height as me, I'm like, fuck, like this guy can't possibly make it in the league.
Yeah.
I was coaching. Today was my first day of spring practice, and of course, I tried to set the tone. So before practice, I dunked, and I felt really good, and I was like, that probably looked awful on film, but I was like, it's weird for me, going from coaching college to coaching at a really small high school, like. I'm the only person there that can dunk. And like I'm used to having the least bounce of anybody in like a given gym that I'm in. And now it's like I'm the most athletic person there, and it's kind of jarring. It's a weird change. But all right, anyways, let's talk about short dudes.